talked about this feud earlier, and a lot of people hate this guy that I'm going to talk about next, but he was a main part of why Braun Strowman got so big this year. I'm going with Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns as the feud of the year, because it did two things that a feud to build up a guy was supposed to do, and it did it perfectly. It made Roman Reigns look human, and it made Braun Strowman look like a monster among men. Okay? Looking at that video that I told you guys about earlier in the show, it was the 100 best moves of 2017. About half of that video was this feud and stuff that they did in their matches. Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns. It was really Braun Strowman throwing Roman Reigns around like a rag doll for about 5 months.
Much to our delight, I might add.
Much to our delight. And Roman Reigns took it on the chin every time like a champ. And he got his. It was when it first started happening, I was like, Roman Reigns is gonna take down Braun Strowman because that's the way it works. That's the way these things work. If they're doing the John Cena route with Roman Reigns, it's Braun Strowman looks like a beast up until the pay-per-view, and then Roman Reigns beats him, and then we move on. And that's what happened at Fastlane this year. That was the February pay-per-view, right?
Yes.
Fastlane? Fastlane, yeah.
Yes.
That was and I was like, oh no. And then we thought it was over because you go from there into Roman Reigns versus The Undertaker. Braun Strowman is off of, and Braun Strowman has nothing to do, and you're like, oh no, it's over. This was stupid. It's whatever. And then after WrestleMania is when that whole beatdown in the back took place that everyone's talking about, where Braun Strowman throws Roman Reigns around like a rag doll, straps him to a stretcher, throws him off the...
I'm not finished with you.
I'm not finished with you, tips over the ambulance. And that was the beginning. Like, I'm not even talking about the February part of the feud, because that was stupid. But from WrestleMania until the end, where Braun Strowman won the feud, that's what put this over the top for me, because Roman Reigns did not pull a Super Cena and win the feud. Braun Strowman beat his ass. And I love that. It did exactly what it was supposed to do.
Someone destroying Roman Reigns? Yes, please.
Both guys looked good. At the end, Roman Reigns did his job and made Braun Strowman look like a superstar.
There you go.
For 3 months. And it was brutal. And I like that. And it's been a long time since we've seen such brutality in one feud over a 3-month time period. And that's what puts it over the top for me.
Fool, what do you got?
It's actually funny because with my feud, it's still going on. And it's all about storytelling. And it's actually one of those feuds that just, this is the first time in a long time that I actually I am really, really invested in a wrestler versus an authority figure feud. And that's Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon.
Really?
There's just so many different storyline aspects that is just making this such a personal feud, from Kevin Owens headbutting Vince McMahon. It's progressed so much, and they're as much as I do love the Roman Reigns Braun Strowman feud, nothing other than them being elevated, nothing really changed. It's just them beating the shit out of each other, and as much as I love that, I want more than just beating the shit out of each other. This one is adding layers to it. You have him beating on headbutting Vince McMahon and frog splashing Vince McMahon, reaching it to that personal level. Shane wanting to end him. You have Hell in a Cell, and they add a factor with Sami Zayn. And now this is actually putting Sami Zayn in a top heel position. Granted, he's still not winning, but but I digress. And now Daniel Bryan's being added to it because Daniel Bryan's afraid of what Shane McMahon is willing to do to make Kevin Owens' life a living hell. He doesn't want Shane McMahon to become Mr. McMahon and Kevin Owens being the sympathetic Stone Cold-esque guy. And that's kind of how it feels. It just feels like a more personal, like Stone Cold versus Mr. McMahon Attitude Era esque storyline, and I'm really intrigued, and I can't wait to see how this ends, and just see where it goes from where we are now.
No,
especially since Shane McMahon is now starting to show heel tendencies.
Yeah, it's actually adding a lot more character to Shane. Like you're seeing corporate Shane McMahon from the past. We're starting to see hints of that now, and Daniel Bryan's just trying to keep him in the light. We don't want and that promo that Shane and Daniel Bryan had last week, and it's not just because I was at the show. It was actually what they said. I was just going, man, this storyline has so many layers, and it calls back to so many things with Daniel Bryan's like, with what you're saying, it sounds like it's best for business, and I'm doing my best. I'm doing all I can to be away from those words, and I don't want you to become that. And yeah, there's just so much character, there's so much story to all of this, and I'm a big story guy. And and Shane putting on spectacles, quote quote. I mean, jumping off the cell, Owens and Zayn beating him up to have him be the last guy of the Survivor Series. Positive and negatives, but all storylines have that. I'm just so intrigued on the character building that this storyline has. I want to see where it ends, and it's most likely going to end at WrestleMania. But I'm loving every second of it, and it makes me so invested, and it's actually making me. It's beaten that whole thing where Raw was so much better than SmackDown for the past couple months. Now it's back to SmackDown being the more interesting show to me.
That's a good solid case for that feud. Honestly, can't argue with any of that.
I do like Omega, Okada. I love Braun and Roman. Those two were actually on the top 5 of my feuds. But there's just something about this one that gets me so invested on what everyone is doing in this particular story. I just can't wait to see where it goes.
Now, on the flip side of that, we have our next category, which is worst feud of the year. Brian, I believe you're up first.
I looked at your paper.
Why are you looking at my paper?
Okay.
I'm backing away from this one because Jeff just took that so personal.
And
don't read my paper.
No, but
don't
you know
read
what?
my paper.
You know what? I agree with you though, because that was bad. Yeah, I'm going with Jinder Mahal versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Mostly.
Thank you for stealing my ideas and sharing my opinion.
What happened? But mostly for the promos that Jinder Mahal did to build up the match. It was an Indian guy who, for the past months before that, was yelling at people for doing basically what we didn't want him to do, which was the Indian guy yelling at how people don't like Indians and all that, doing all this whatever, and then going and being a complete racist towards Shinsuke Nakamura.
Irony!
Irony.
Thy name is Jinder.
Thy name is Jinder, and it was no good. It helped nobody. It got nobody over. It made Shinsuke look like a complete moron the entire time.
I should not be this bored by anything Shinsuke Nakamura related.
Yeah,
Full stop.
And do I think that all of it was gendered? No, Shinsuke had a lot to do with how bad it was too.
The guys just had no chemistry together.
Yeah, they couldn't
work.
They had no chemistry together. The idea behind the feud, the idea behind the feud was wonky and awkward at all times. Who wants to see two minorities being racist towards each other? Who wants to see that on TV?
It's not good TV, period.
Yeah, and
I never even thought about it that way.
The Indian celebration, good lord, that was horrible. And the matches were god awful. And we're saying that about a Shinsuke Nakamura match. There's a reason.
I'm saying that about a Shinsuke Nakamura match.
Yeah.
That should not be.
This did nothing for anyone, and it just proved during that time that the Jinder Mahal experiment was a mistake.
Was that both of you?
Yeah.
So
we basically shared the same opinion.
Well,
you're up.
It's funny because it's just Jinder Mahal, period. But I'm going to go with his first feud, and that's with Randy Orton.
That was a close second.
Why don't we just go Jinder
Mahal versus
Jinder Mahal versus? There you go.
It's just
consensus reached.
It's just I hate any feud that brings back the great cheese, even for one night.
Yes. Why'd you have to remind me of that?
That brings back one of the worst matches, the Punjabi prison match. Shit, I think I just gave away my worst match. But yeah, it's just kind of funny because it just throws continuity completely out the door. It's like Randy Orton takes it so personal. It's like, he's attacking my family. I gotta beat him for that. Randy, isn't that most of your career, just destroying someone's family? I mean, look what you did to John Cena's dad, for God's sake. Look what you did to Stephanie. Look what you did to Vince for when you feuded against Triple H.
Look what you did to Edge. No, he didn't do anything to Edge. Edge did something to John Cena's dad. John, stop bringing your dad around.
Didn't he destroy Christian?
Yeah, he did.
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just completely. The continuity of the feud is just complete nonsense. And
I'll save my thoughts for reasons that will be revealed later.
And I gotta say it again: if you bring back both the Punjabi prison match and the Great Cheese in one night, you fail. I'm sorry, I hate the Punjabi prison match.
Well, before we didn't,
not just that match, just that match.
So let's not talk about that anymore. Let's get to something better, which is our next category. Match of the year. Okay, whose turn is it? Wow, I keep losing track of that. Anyway, fire away. Give us something good.
To be perfectly honest, I'm actually at a toss between AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar and AJ Styles and John Cena. And, well, to be perfectly honest, I think I'm just going to go with AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar, because that was great wrestling plus great storytelling, and as Brian said earlier, it brought Brock Lesnar's best match this year, and we were on the edge of our seats. Everybody was on the edge of their seats for this one. It wasn't just pure wrestling magic, but it just showed that taking the title off Jinder was the greatest idea, and not having that Jinder Mahal versus Brock Lesnar match. And there's an alternate universe that has Jinder Mahal versus Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series,
and it was 4 seconds long. It was 4 seconds long, and Brock Lesnar ate him.
And there's alternate versions of us that are just giving their scholars, thinking this was one of the worst matches of the year. But that's not the case.
That's not what we got.
But we got in one of my favorite matches, and I'm just going to go AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar.
That's a very good match. It's definitely a candidate that I was thinking of. However, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I'm going with Omega versus Okada again.
That's actually my number 2.
Wrestle Kingdom, right?
I believe that's the second or third one.
I believe.
I don't know, but it's the one that everybody was talking about.
It seems like they were talking about
I think it was the third one. Yeah, I think it's the third
The
one.
one that Meltzer
about.
gave 6 stars.
They really talked about all of these to a certain degree, and all for different reasons. I seem to remember enjoying the second one the most.